I found the receipt in her gym bag on a Tuesday morning. Not just any receipt, a hotel charge for $347 from the Meridian downtown. The date stamped across the bottom made my coffee taste like battery acid. The same weekend she'd told me she was at a women's wellness retreat in the mountains. I've always been the type to notice small things. A sock left on the floor, a stray hair on the couch, a look that lingers too long between her and someone else. Little things that, when added up over time, make you question the bigger picture. But I never imagined I'd find something like this. A receipt, a stupid, innocent-looking piece of paper that, in the blink of an eye, turned my world upside down. My name is Alex Carver, and that Tuesday morning in October was when my marriage fell apart. I just didn't know it yet. Kat was in the shower, singing something off-key while water hammered against tile. I stood in our bedroom holding that slip of thermal paper like it might burn through my fingers. The Meridian. I knew that place. Expensive, exclusive. The kind of hotel businessmen took their mistresses to, not where wellness retreats happen. My hands shook ever so slightly, and I felt a knot tighten in my chest. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a mix-up. Kat had been to the Meridian. On the weekend, she'd told me she was recharging at a wellness retreat in the mountains. A weekend she'd promised would be for self-care, meditation, yoga. Now, I was staring at proof she hadn't spent it alone in the quietude of nature. She had been somewhere else. I placed the receipt back exactly where I'd found it, tucked between a crumpled protein bar wrapper and her phone charger. I wanted to bury it again, to pretend like nothing had changed. My hands were steady. I didn't expect that. I thought they'd be trembling, but they weren't. They were calm. Too calm. I had to keep it together. The last thing I needed right now was to let her see the storm brewing inside me. We'd been married for 8 years. 8 years of what I thought was a solid partnership. Sure, we'd had our rough patches. What couple doesn't? But I'd trusted her. Completely. Stupidly. "Babe, did you remember to pick up my dry cleaning?" She called from the bathroom, her voice echoing slightly in the still morning air. I didn't respond immediately. I could feel my heartbeat thudding in my ears, the tightness in my throat making it harder to speak. "It's in the closet," I said, managing to keep my voice even, calm, like nothing was wrong. Amazing what you can fake when you need to. She came out of the bathroom moments later, wrapped in a towel. Water dripped from her hair, pooling on the floor beneath her as she walked past me. Kat had always been beautiful. There was no doubt about that. But beauty wasn't enough anymore, not when something much deeper was unraveling before me. At 32, she had the kind of effortless confidence that turned heads, the kind that made her a magnet in any room. She had a job that matched that confidence. She worked in PR for a mid-sized agency downtown, a place that demanded long hours, constant networking, and weekend conferences. At least, that's what she told me. "You okay?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly as she caught my gaze. "You look weird." It took me a moment to answer. My mind was still processing the receipt, the hotel, the weekend she had lied about. I couldn't let her see that I knew. Not yet. Not until I had answers. "Just tired," I said, trying to sound casual. "Didn't sleep well?" I could tell she didn't quite buy it. Her eyes lingered on me for a second, like she was trying to read something in my face, something that didn't fit. But whatever it was, she didn't push it. She kissed my cheek as she passed, leaving a damp spot on my skin. "You work too hard, honey. Maybe we should take a weekend trip somewhere. Get away from it all." Her words were like a slap, though I'm sure she didn't mean it that way. Get away from it all. How could she say that when she was so clearly living a separate life, one I didn't know about? My chest tightened, and I forced myself to smile, the irony of it almost unbearable. "Yeah," I said, still sounding like I was playing along. "Maybe." But I wasn't thinking about a weekend getaway. I was thinking about everything she'd said in the last few months. The long hours at work, the supposed weekend retreats, the stories that never quite added up. I was thinking about Luke, that name, that damned name. I left for work that morning with my head clouded in a fog. I work as an IT security specialist for a financial firm. Essentially, my job requires me to be meticulous, to focus on patterns and connections. It's a skill that requires obsessive attention to detail, something that, ironically, was going to serve me well today. I needed answers. At my desk, I logged into our shared phone account. We had a family plan, which meant I could access all the usage data. I wasn't just looking for casual texts or calls, I was looking for something that stood out, something that could explain the gut feeling gnawing at me. The truth was, I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to leave it up to chance. Within 20 minutes, I had pulled up 3 months of call logs and text message metadata. My fingers hovered over the mouse as I scrolled through the data, and that's when I saw it. The pattern. It wasn't subtle. It was a glaring, ugly truth staring back at me. Since late July, there had been a number that appeared over and over again in the call logs. Hundreds of texts, calls at strange hours, video chats that lasted over an hour, often while I was working late on a security audit. My mind focused on code, unaware that my wife was somewhere else. She had been somewhere else, with him. I ran the number through a reverse lookup, and the results hit me like a brick to the chest. Luke Manson. I knew the name instantly. Luke, her college boyfriend, the one she had dated for 2 years before we met. I never thought much about him. She'd mentioned him a few times during our marriage, always in passing, with an air of casual indifference. "Oh, I ran into Luke at the grocery store. He's doing real estate now," she had said only a few months ago. But that was all, just a passing mention. I sat back in my chair, the room feeling smaller with each passing second. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed in the background, a stark reminder that life was moving on, oblivious to the storm inside me. Someone laughed in the cubicle next to mine, the sound seeming miles away. My thoughts raced. I had to be sure. Maybe this was some kind of mistake. Maybe they were just friends, catching up after all these years. Maybe... Then I found the photos. She had backed up her phone to our shared cloud storage. I had set it up myself years ago, thinking it would be convenient. Little did I know how convenient it would be now. My fingers shook slightly as I opened the folder with the most recent uploads. The pictures hit me like a punch. There they were. Kat and Luke at a restaurant I didn't recognize, her head thrown back in laughter at something he'd said, her eyes alight with something I hadn't seen in years. Another photo, them at a beach I didn't know, his arm around her waist, their bodies close in a way that didn't belong in a friendship. And then the one that nearly broke me, a selfie of them in bed, Kat wearing a hotel robe I'd never seen before. The beach photo. That one got to me the most. It was taken the same weekend she'd told me she was at the wellness retreat. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound of it echoing in the silent office. I stood up abruptly, the floor beneath me tilting as if I might fall. My stomach churned, a familiar nausea rising from deep inside. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it in time before everything I had eaten for breakfast came rushing up. I knelt by the toilet, retching until I was empty. I washed my face with cold water, trying to wash away the image of her, of Luke, of that smile, that touch. My reflection stared back at me, unchanged. But I wasn't the same. Something had shifted, something had broken, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't confront her that night, or the next night. For the first time in 8 years of marriage, I found myself waiting, watching, and thinking. What was once my sanctuary of trust and partnership had turned into a labyrinth of lies and deceit. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering evidence like I was building a court case, because that's exactly what I was doing, gathering the pieces of my shattered world, one small thread at a time. It started with the receipt. That stupid, insignificant piece of paper had led me down a dark path that I couldn't unsee. Over the next few days, I dug deeper into everything I could find. I checked her texts, call logs, social media accounts, and more. The information I uncovered was not surprising, but it was devastating. I discovered she'd been seeing Luke since that chance meeting 4 months ago. What started as a casual coffee had escalated into more. Lunches, dinners, and then, the clincher, weekend getaways. Every time I thought I was uncovering something new, the pile of lies grew even larger. I couldn't escape it. What hit me hardest was the fact that she'd used our joint account to fund some of it. The hotel receipt I found was just one of many charges I'd overlooked, simply because I had trusted her. We had a joint account for a reason, to pool our finances, to save for the future, to plan for a house, maybe even children. But I had been a fool. I had given her my trust without ever thinking she might abuse it. Our joint account. That thought lingered in my mind like a dark cloud. It made me sick. If I hadn't been so trusting, I might have noticed sooner. Maybe I could have prevented this. Maybe I could have stopped her before she'd gone too far. But I wasn't going to wallow in guilt. Not yet. There was still too much I needed to figure out. So I checked our banking records more carefully. And that was when the truth hit me like a sledgehammer. Over the past 3 months, she'd transferred nearly $18,000 from our joint savings into her personal checking account. At first, it had been small amounts. $300 here, $500 there. Little withdrawals that seemed harmless, almost trivial. But as the months wore on, the sums grew larger. The most recent transfer was a massive $4,000, made just 2 days ago. I sat in my home office at 2 a.m, staring at the bank statements while Kat slept peacefully in our bed. I knew she'd never guess what I was doing. I could hear her soft breathing from the other side of the wall. She was unaware of everything, of the silent war I was waging, of the steps I was taking to reclaim the control I had lost. But there was something deeply wrong with this picture. She was draining our savings to fund her affair. Money we had been saving for a down payment on a house, a place we had talked about for years, the house of our dreams, the future we'd planned together, and now she was using that same money I'd earned working 60-hour weeks while she'd told me she was investing in her career. I wasn't angry at that moment. I wasn't furious or emotional or ready to lash out. No. The rage that went through me was clean and cold. It wasn't the kind of anger that makes you do stupid things, throwing punches, saying things you can't take back. This was different. It was calculating, patient. It was the kind of anger that makes you plan. I started planning. The first step was to document everything. I created an encrypted folder on a secure server and began uploading the evidence I had collected. Photos, call logs, bank statements, the text messages I had recovered from the backup, the receipts. I had enough evidence to bury her in a divorce, to destroy her credibility, and to make sure she never came out of this unscathed. But I wanted more than that. I didn't just want to end our marriage. I wanted her to feel the same weight I felt, this suffocating sense of betrayal. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions, and I wanted to make sure those consequences were public. I wanted the world to know what kind of person she was, what kind of lies she had woven to get away with this. Kat worked for Hartwell Communications, a PR firm that had strict ethics policies about employee conduct. I had been to enough company parties to know that her boss, a woman named Susan Hartwell, ran a tight ship. Susan was no nonsense. She prided herself on her company's impeccable reputation. A hint of scandal, of any kind of indiscretion, could ruin a career. I knew that if I played my cards right, I could take down Kat's career with one well-timed revelation. But that wasn't all. Luke worked at Premier Realty, one of those aggressive real estate firms that plastered their name on billboards all over the city. I did some digging and found out he was married too, to a woman named Jennifer, a woman who had no idea her husband was screwing his college girlfriend behind her back. 2 marriages destroyed by 2 selfish people who'd decided their desires mattered more than their promises, more than the vows they'd made. I had them both, and I was about to teach them a lesson about consequences. The opportunity came 2 weeks after I found that first receipt. Kat announced she had a team-building retreat that weekend in the mountains, 3 days at some resort. She showed me the invitation email, which looked legitimate enough. The details seemed to check out. Transportation, a full itinerary, meals included. But I knew better now. I knew how she worked, and I knew how to spot the lies buried within the truth. "That sounds great," I said, keeping my voice casual. "You work so hard. You deserve a break." She beamed at me. Actually beamed. Like I was the world's most understanding husband, like I was the man who had no idea what was really going on, the man she was systematically betraying and robbing. "Thanks, babe," she said, practically glowing. "I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be just what I need." I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course. You deserve it." Friday morning came, and she kissed me goodbye, the warmth of her lips lingering on my cheek for a moment longer than usual. She wheeled her suitcase out to her car, humming a tune under her breath, as if everything was normal. I watched her drive away, the sound of the car fading into the distance. I stared at the spot where her car had been, and then I pulled out my laptop. Using a tracking app I'd quietly installed on her phone during one of her showers, a little move I was proud of for its subtlety, I watched her location on the screen. She didn't drive toward the mountains. She drove straight to the Meridian Hotel downtown. 30 minutes later, Luke's car pulled into the same parking garage. I had them, but I didn't do anything, not yet. The rage was still there, but I couldn't act on it impulsively. Not now. I needed to be smart about this. I needed to play the long game. Instead, I spent that weekend preparing. I contacted a divorce attorney and arranged a consultation for Monday. I opened a new bank account in just my name and transferred exactly half of what remained in our joint savings. I wasn't going to let her take everything. I had earned that money, and I wasn't going to let her squander it on her affair. I also changed the passwords on everything: streaming services, our Amazon account, and everything else we shared. I wanted to make sure she wouldn't have access to anything that could be used against me in the future. Then I started making copies of everything: the house deed, car titles, insurance policies. I photographed every room in our apartment, every piece of furniture, every item of value. I was building a fortress of documentation. I wasn't going to let her walk away with a penny more than she deserved. When Kat came home Sunday night, she was glowing. "The retreat was amazing," she said, as she set her suitcase down by the door. "So rejuvenating. I really feel like I've reconnected with myself." "That's wonderful, honey," I said, my voice as flat as it could be. I'm happy for you. She never noticed that I had already disconnected from her completely. The woman who had once been my everything, who had once been the center of my world, was now nothing more than a stranger to me. A stranger who had betrayed me. Monday morning, I sent the first email. I'd spent hours crafting it, making it look like it came from a concerned third party. Anonymous, but credible. The photos I'd found were damning enough, but I needed context. So I wrote a careful message explaining that 2 employees of different companies were having an affair and using company time and resources to facilitate it. The email went to Susan Hartwell at Kat's PR firm. Another version went to the managing partner at Luke's real estate company. I attached select photos. Nothing explicit, but enough to make it clear what was happening. Kat and Luke at lunch on a Wednesday when she'd texted me she was working through lunch. Them leaving the Meridian together. Him kissing her in a parking garage, her car visible with her company parking sticker. Then I waited. The call came Tuesday afternoon. Kat, hysterical, calling me from her car. Alex, something terrible happened, she sobbed. Someone sent photos to Susan. Photos of me and with Luke, from college. I don't know who would do this. What kind of photos? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Just us hanging out. But someone made it look like we were having an affair. Alex, I've been fired. Susan said it was a conflict of interest, that I'd violated the ethics policy. She wouldn't even listen to me. That's awful, I said. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm in the parking lot. I can't believe this is happening. Who would do this to me? The question hung in the air between us. I could hear her breathing, waiting for me to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. I don't know, I said, but I'm sure the truth will come out. Maybe you should come home and we can talk about it. She showed up an hour later, red-eyed and furious. I'd never seen her like this. The composed, confident woman I'd married was gone. In her place was someone panicked and desperate. This is insane, she said, pacing our living room. Someone is trying to destroy me. Those photos, they're just innocent meetings with an old friend. Someone twisted them into something they're not. Have you talked to Luke? I asked casually. She froze for just a second. Why would I talk to Luke? Well, he's in the photos too, right? He might know who did this. Yeah, I guess. He got fired too. Can you believe that? Someone sent the same photos to his boss. That's strange, I said. Why would someone target both of you? I watched her face as she tried to come up with an explanation that didn't involve admitting the affair. She was trapped, and she knew it. I don't know, she finally said. Maybe someone from college who had it out for both of us. The lie sat between us like a third person in the room. Over the next week, I watched Kat unravel. Without her job, she spent her days at home, alternating between rage and despair. She'd file for unemployment, she'd reach out to her network, she'd land on her feet, she kept saying, but I wasn't done. Every time she reached out to someone in her industry, they were polite but distant. I'd made sure of that. Using anonymous accounts, I'd sent careful messages to key people in the PR world. Not accusations, nothing that could be traced back or proven false. Just concerns. Questions about her professional ethics. Screenshots of her company's code of conduct policy that she'd allegedly violated. In the world of PR and reputation management, perception is everything. I was systematically destroying hers. She started drinking more. Wine at lunch, then wine at dinner, then wine while watching Netflix in the afternoon. I watched her and felt nothing. Not pity, not regret, not even satisfaction yet. Just a cold determination to see this through. Luke was having his own problems. I'd sent Jennifer, his wife, a flash drive in the mail containing copies of everything. No note, just the evidence. 2 days later, Luke's social media went dark and his real estate profile disappeared from the company website. Kat didn't know I knew about Luke's situation. She was too wrapped up in her own destruction to notice that her affair partner was imploding too. Then she made her first mistake. I came home from work one evening to find her in my home office, my laptop open in front of her. She jumped when I walked in. Just checking my email, she said quickly. My laptop's dead. But I could see what was on the screen. My browser history. She'd been trying to figure out if I was the one who'd sent those photos. Find anything interesting? I asked. What? No, I was just... She trailed off. Checking up on me, I finished. Do you think I'm the one who got you fired, Kat? Her face went through several expressions. Fear, guilt, defiance. Of course not. I don't know what to think anymore. Maybe you should think about who you've been spending your time with, I said. Maybe you should think about the choices you've made. She stood up, her face flushing. What's that supposed to mean? It means that actions have consequences. Whoever sent those photos probably had a reason. Are you saying I deserved this? Her voice was rising now. I'm saying that if you weren't doing anything wrong, you wouldn't have anything to worry about. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact second she realized I knew. Her face went pale, her eyes widening. Alex, I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight, I said, cutting her off. I think we both need some space. I left her standing there and didn't look back. I filed for divorce the next morning, had the papers served to her at home while I was at work. My attorney had advised doing it this way, clean, legal, by the book. She called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer once. When I got home that evening, she was waiting in the living room, the divorce papers spread on the coffee table in front of her. You're really doing this, she said, not a question. Yes, because of Luke. Still not a question, but softer now. Because you're a liar and a thief, I said. The affair is bad enough, Kat, but you stole from us, from our future, to fund your betrayal. Her face crumpled. I was going to pay it back. You needed to have an affair with your ex-boyfriend, I interrupted. You needed to lie to me for months. You needed to drain our savings to pay for hotel rooms? Yeah, I know about all of it. How long have you known? Long enough to document everything. Long enough to make sure that when this goes to court, you get exactly what you deserve. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. Alex, please. We can work through this. Marriage counseling. Whatever you want. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk, I said. What you did was make a choice. Over and over again. Every time you lied to me. Every time you met him. Every time you transferred money out of our account. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. I love you, she said desperately. No, you don't. You love the security I provided while you screwed your ex-boyfriend. There's a difference. I walked to our bedroom and started packing a bag. She followed me, still pleading, but I tuned her out. I'd heard enough lies. Where are you going? She asked when I headed for the door. Staying with a friend. My attorney will be in touch about the apartment. Since my name is on the lease and you have no income, I'd suggest you start looking for somewhere else to live. You can't just kick me out. I can, and I am. You have 30 days to find other arrangements. That's more than generous, considering what you've done. I left her standing in our apartment, still crying, and I didn't feel a thing. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal maneuvers and strategic strikes. My attorney was good. Really good. And with the evidence I'd provided, Kat didn't have a leg to stand on. But I wasn't satisfied with just a divorce. I wanted her to understand the full weight of what she'd done. I wanted consequences that lasted. Through my network at work, I learned that Kat had been trying to land freelance PR work. Every time she got close, something would fall through. A bad reference from her previous employer. A concerned email from an anonymous source. Nothing illegal, nothing traceable to me, just enough to make potential clients nervous. The PR industry is small, and reputation is everything. Kat's was in tatters. Luke was having similar problems. Jennifer had divorced him fast, taking their house and his car in the settlement. His real estate license was under investigation for ethics violations, something about misrepresenting properties and using client information inappropriately. I'd made sure the state board received detailed anonymous complaints. One night, I was having a drink at a bar near my new apartment when my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Stay away from Kat, you psycho. Luke's voice slurred and angry. I know what you're doing. I don't know what you're talking about, I said calmly. The hell you don't. You got us both fired. You've been sabotaging her career. You're destroying my business. I know it's you. That's quite an accusation. Do you have any proof? Silence on the other end. Then, if you don't back off, You'll what? I interrupted. File a police report saying what exactly? That someone exposed your affair and it had professional consequences? That actions have outcomes? Good luck with that. You're insane. No, I'm just someone who believes in accountability. You and Kat decided to blow up 2 marriages for a few cheap thrills. Now you're dealing with the fallout. That's not insanity. That's justice. I'll come for you, he said, his voice dropping to a threat. You think you're so smart, but You'll do nothing, I said, because you're a coward who seduces other men's wives and then can't handle it when there are consequences. Stay away from me, stay away from Kat, and maybe you can salvage something of your pathetic life. I hung up. My hand was shaking, but not from fear, from satisfaction. It happened in a parking lot on a Tuesday evening. I was leaving the gym when I saw them, Kat and Luke, standing by her car arguing. She was gesturing wildly. He was running his hands through his hair. Both of them looked desperate. I could have walked away, should have. But something made me approach them. "Well, isn't this cozy?" I said. They both spun around. Kat's face went white. Luke's went red. "Alex," Kat started, "this isn't—" "Spare me," I said. "I don't care anymore, Kat. That's the funny thing. You and your affair partner here destroyed our marriage, and now I'm supposed to care that you're having a parking lot argument? I'm supposed to feel something about this?" "You've destroyed our lives," Luke said, stepping forward. "You're a vindictive—" "Careful," I interrupted. "Choose your next words very carefully." He was bigger than me, probably thought he could intimidate me. But I'd been practicing mixed martial arts for years, a hobby Kat had always dismissed as silly. Now I stood my ground and watched him recalculate. "You sent those photos to our employers," he said. "You're the reason we got fired." "You're the reason you got fired," I corrected. "You had an affair on company time, using company resources. Someone just made sure the right people knew about it. That person did your employers a favor, really. Saved them from keeping unethical employees." "This is harassment," Kat said. Her voice was shaking. "We could press charges?" I laughed, actually laughed. "For what? Telling the truth? You want to go to court, Kat? Really? Because I have months of documentation showing your affair, the money you stole, every lie you told. I'd love to have that conversation in front of a judge." She looked away. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice cold and steady. "You two are going to stop contacting me, stop making threats, and accept that your choices have consequences. The divorce will go through. You'll move out of my apartment, and both of you will rebuild your lives somewhere far away from mine." "And if we don't?" Luke asked, trying to sound tough. "Then I release everything else I have. The photos I didn't share, the financial records, the text messages that would make your ex-wife's divorce settlement look generous, the emails between you two planning your little getaways, laughing about how stupid your spouses were. Want me to continue?" The fight went out of both of them. I could see it happen in real time, the reality of their situation hitting them like cold water. "You're a monster," Kat whispered. "No," I said. "I'm just someone who fought back. You want to know what a monster looks like? Check the mirror. Both of you." I walked away and didn't look back. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Kat moved to another state. I heard through mutual friends that she'd taken a job in Atlanta, something in a different industry. Luke's real estate license got suspended pending the investigation. Last I heard, he was selling insurance. I kept the apartment, kept most of our assets. The judge had been unimpressed with Kat's defense once he saw the evidence of the theft and deception. Some people might say I went too far. That revenge isn't worth it, that I should have just taken the high road. But those people have never felt what I felt. They've never had someone they loved look them in the eye every day while systematically betraying them. I didn't murder anyone, didn't break any laws. I just made sure the truth came out and the consequences stuck. Is that so wrong? My boss recommended me for a promotion. Apparently my work during the whole ordeal hadn't suffered at all. Funny how focused you can be when you channel rage into productivity. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just reminding myself what it felt like to be with someone honest, someone who didn't lie every time they opened their mouth. One night, I was going through old photos on my computer, deleting the ones with Kat in them, when I found a video from our wedding. We looked so happy, so innocent. 2 people making promises they meant at the time. I watched myself in that video, smiling at her, believing in forever, and I felt sorry for him. That guy had no idea what was coming, but that guy was gone. I was someone different now, harder, colder, more careful about trust. Some people might call that sad. I called it surviving. I deleted the video and closed my laptop. Outside my window, the city lights stretched into the distance. Millions of people living their lives, making their choices, dealing with their consequences. I was just one of them now. One of the ones who'd learned that the world doesn't owe you fair. You have to take what you're owed, make them see what they've done. Kat had wanted to have her cake and eat it too. She'd wanted the security of our marriage and the excitement of her affair. She'd thought she was smart enough to get away with it. She'd been wrong. And me? I'd wanted justice. I'd wanted them to feel what I felt, to lose what they'd made me lose. I got exactly what I wanted. The funny thing about revenge is that it doesn't fix the hurt. You'd think it would, but it doesn't. The betrayal still happened, the lies still existed, the marriage still fell apart. But at least they paid for it. At least they knew that actions have consequences, that you can't just destroy people and walk away unscathed. I poured myself a drink and raised it to my reflection in the dark window. To new beginnings, I said. Then I corrected myself. No, to endings, to final chapters, to closing the book and walking away. I drank, and it tasted like victory.